What's up, everyone? It's your girl Aggie, aka Nurse Ags. So as you can tell from the title of this video, I wanted to share the story of a time I had to break up a fight. Yes, a fight in a patient's room, as well as share some tips and advice on how to work with patients' families and maintain a safe and supportive environment for the patient. Now, before we get into all of that good stuff, I wanted to make a special announcement. If you follow me on Instagram, you've already heard the news, but if you don't, I am a new brand ambassador for The Resilient Nurse, hence my t-shirt, and I am super excited about it. For those of you who don't know, The Resilient Nurse is an organization and platform headed by the Nurse Mo, who is super dope, and basically it gives us the space to share our stories and experiences. When I say us, I mean other nurses, nurse practitioners, nurse bosses, and to really inspire nurses to be, current nurses and seasoned nurses. Their website has different blog posts from the ambassadors, as well as events that they had throughout the country. I'm super bummed out that I missed the one in Atlanta recently. Don't want to talk about it. I was in school. It's whatever. But yeah, you should definitely check out their Instagram page, Resilient Nurse, as well as their website, and follow the Nurse Mo. Like I said, she's awesome, amazing, super inspiring. And yeah, I look forward to sharing some cool content on their website and on their Instagram page. So you should definitely stay tuned for that. And now let's head into this video and talking about this fight I had to break up at work, because yeah, that did happen. So first of all, for those of you who don't know, I'm a labor and delivery nurse of 2.5 years, and I work night shift. So that's the context of this story. And this night I was working as the team leader in triage. So on my unit, it's so big that we have different pods, and with the different pods or stations, the nurses stations, we have team leaders, and the team leader serves as a major resource and of support to the nurses in that pod. So I was actually helping one of the nurses chart something on the computer when all of a sudden we hear out of a patient's room literal and loud fussing. We're not really sure who it is that's doing the fussing, but we just hear yelling and screaming, and yeah, that's what we heard. So I noticed the nurse of the room standing outside the door, and she was kind of hesitating to go in. And as a team leader, you know, I'm that support, I'm that extra resource. So, you know, in my mind, I already knew that I was gonna have to go inside and simmer down the situation and figure out what was going on. So I go in there, and the nurse comes in there with me. And what I see is the patient in the bed, bawling her eyes out, holding her stomach, literally in so much distress. On one side of her is her parents, with her dad yelling across the room to the father of the baby, and the father of the baby yelling back to him. So they're both like going in at each other, saying, "You need to leave this room, you're disrespecting me." This is what the father of the baby is saying. And then the dad is saying, "No, you need to leave, I'm not going nowhere, that's my baby." And both of them are not letting up. And I hear the patient, she's yelling at the parents to stop yelling, like she's saying, "Please stop," like, "No, like stop, stop, stop." And so I assessed that situation really quickly, and I'm like, please, I need everyone except the patient to leave this room right now. I need y'all to leave right now. And so I see the parents standing up to leave the room, and on the way out, they're like, "No, you need to leave too." They're yelling at the father of the baby, "You need to leave too." She said, "Everyone needs to leave." He's like, "I'm not going nowhere, I'm not going nowhere." And so the nurse that was in the room with me, she's kind of just shooing them out. And I hear the patient, she goes, "Shut the door," as soon as she sees the parents leave. You know, mind you, the father of the baby's still in the room. So I'm like facing the patient, like my back towards the father of the baby. And I had to give her that look like, this is what you want. You don't need the father of the baby to leave. So she was like, "No, I want my boyfriend to stay. The father of the baby, I want him to stay. I need my parents out." So I'm like, okay. So at this point, she's still like crying her eyes out. I'm trying to console her. Her nurse is trying to console her, give her a box of tissues, just telling her to breathe, because she is just so upset, as she should be. Like, it was very, very, very intense in there. And so I'm like, I tell her, I'm like, do you want to be a no information patient? What a no info patient is, we put the patient in the system as if she doesn't even exist. So if anyone comes up to the desk or anyone asks about her, like, she doesn't exist. We don't tell anyone except people who are taking care of her about her. And she's like, yes, I don't want no one to know that I'm here. So I'm like, that means if you have family members that are trying to see you or whatever, they have to text you or text him to find out what room you're in. She's like, that's fine. That's perfect. I don't want anyone knowing where I am. So we're like, all right, good. She was in labor anyway, so we had to move her from the triage room to a labor bed. So it actually worked out perfectly, but we just had to work a little bit more quickly because, mind you, we had escorted her parents to the waiting room, so we didn't want them to see where we were moving. So at this point, I'm like, all right, cool. You're gonna be a no information patient. I leave the room and I talk to the charge nurse, give her an update about what's going on, let her know that she wants to be no information and that we need a room for her as soon as possible so we can move her. She gets on top of that. We get a wheelchair. The nurse decides to go with the patient and give the report, at the bedside versus on the phone. But we worked super quickly to get her moved, and her boyfriend were extremely thankful. This time the patient was a little bit more calm, and the nurse actually said as she was transporting her, she was in better spirits already, and was super grateful that we worked to simmer down that whole situation because, like I said, it was super intense. And even after the fact, like, I was trying to process it all and woosah from it, because when someone's yelling like that, obviously the patient's gonna be affected, but also the caregivers are too, because we're not really sure what everyone's capable of. You just never know. So I was trying to be super professional in the moment. I'm just happy the patient was safe overall and was comfortable after the fact, and that we were able to get rid of the thing that was causing stress, which happened to be her parents. Obviously it gets to the point where you can only do but so much, and I would have to have called security to come and handle the situation. But luckily, at that point, both parties were listening to what I had to say, and the family did get up and leave, because otherwise I would have had to call the hospital security. So that was the story of how I had to break up a fight. Alright, so really quickly, I will share just a few tips on how to work with patients, families, to ensure a safe and supportive environment. So one is, as soon as the patient gets there, try your best to interview the patient individually. There's some private things that be going on in the patient's life that she might not want her partner or her family members to know. So try your best to ask those questions while she's alone. So those are questions like, do you have any sexually transmitted diseases, or like any miscarriages or abortions? Do you feel safe at home? That's especially important. Obviously you're not going to volunteer that information if your partner who's abusing you is in the room. So try to interview the patient individually. That can get a little bit tricky. Usually what I'll do is I'll ask like all the basic information once when the partner's in there, and then like if the partner is getting ice or drinks or for the patient or something, that's when I'll ask those more sensitive questions. So that's number one. Number two is if the patient family is, breaking some of the hospital rules, always refer to the hospital policy, and that kind of takes the blame off of you. So if there's a rule to the number of visitors in the room at a time and they are going above that number, just simply say, I'm sorry, this is the hospital policy and I could get in trouble for this. And encourage an alternative. Just say, for example, y'all are more than welcome to switch in and out the waiting room so y'all can be of support to her in the patient's room at certain times. But so always refer to the hospital policy. Like I said, takes the burden off your shoulders and puts the blame on the hospital. And then the last tip is how to keep the patient's family involved. Whether it is a patient that's in labor or maybe the patient's sick, a lot of times the family members, they feel helpless. So just, bring them to the side and kind of give them some encouraging tips on how they can best support the patient. Oftentimes it's just simply being next to them at the bedside and just holding their hand, being with them, being present, and just knowing that, that just shows that you really care for them. Also, as a nurse, sometimes it is your job to make sure that that family's taken care of. What I'll normally do is once the patient has epidural, for example, and she's a little bit more settled in and more comfortable sleeping, I'll get the patient's family some extra blankets and pillows and encourage them to, you know, grab something to eat at this time. They'll need something on their stomach, and make sure that, you know, they are taking care of themselves. Those are the tips that I have. I hope that is helpful to you guys. I hope y'all can learn something from the story that I shared, and I want to know in the comments below what tips you guys have for working with patients and their families. Let me know in the comments y'all's experiences and your tips that you have, and I will see you guys on the next video. Deuces.